Welcome to the top of the morning show. It's your girl TT from the D. Happy Thursday, y'all. It is Thankful Thursday once again. It is the last Thursday of the year for me as we get ready to close down the season. And we will restart a brand new season in 2024. Today's hot topic, we're going to talk about the setup to fail syndrome. Listen, y'all, don't take the bait now. I was having some real good conversations just the other day. And I said, you know what? That is a great topic. We're gonna unpack that thing right before we end the season. Because I think a lot of people go through and don't even understand they're not the only ones. What is the setup to fail syndrome? You may ask. It's when an employer or employee, I would say employer, an organization fails or even does not create a productive environment where an employee has the opportunity to understand the work that they are set out or expected to do. And for whatever the reason, whatever the problem, it's assumed that the employee is not competent, not capable, and that's just not it. You think about the term fall guy, right? You set somebody up for failure. Now, a lot of times people may not even realize, no, I'm not being set up for failure. And then they ask themselves, am I being set up for failure? And it's like, think about it. But then, what does that look like? How do you know? Right? Have you had the opportunity to be taught and trained on something? Would you ask somebody to drive a machine-operated, let's just say a forklift, and they have no experience? I don't think you would. How? How would they? You gonna go on driving forklift today. Who gonna teach me how to do that? And then they'll say, well, I don't know. I don't know how to do it myself. It's like, well, how am I? If you don't know how to do it, who's supposed to teach you? That's an important factor. And I'm like, it's one you can't ignore. You can't just it's not one of those self-taught things. Now, some people might say, I think you could probably read a book on, how to use the gears and things of that nature. And this is just an example. And I'm like, you really are setting that person up for failure, right? You'll blame that they should have known. What about the opportunity not to say no? See, the syndrome usually begins with the initial, can you do this job? Such as an employee, let's say, loses a client, right? Doesn't make their mark, misses a deadline, right? This employee or this, the performance is poor, right? And then it just creates a domino effect, right? An employee could be then transferred into a division with a lukewarm recommendation from a previous boss who really didn't want you in the first place and happy to see you go. Perhaps the boss and the employee don't really get along. And a lot of times, you may not, but let's be clear. When you are working and you have a job, you are there to do a job. Now, you are not there to be your boss's friend, wingman, or none of that. You're there to do a job. They hired you initially to be able to do that job. Now, if they promote you for whatever the reason or whatever that look like, you may say, I didn't have no experience in this, but they said that I would do great at this. And I'm like, the average person, when you give them the opportunity to go into another role, normally, and if I'm wrong, hey, somebody just say, hey, TT, I don't agree with what you said in its entirety, and that's fine because we're not going to always touch and agree. But you say, okay, no, this is not it. This is not it. It's not working, right? But I think a lot of times, more often than not, we look at situations and we're put in these situations and they're like, okay, oh, you would be a great fit for this. And it's like, in what regards? Like, because I don't know what to do. I don't have any training. You have these deadlines or these expectations. How will I meet them? How will I make them when I don't even know what to really do? You know, you get thrusted into a position or a role and it's like sink or swim, right? Sink or swim. And these actions are intended to boost the performance. Unfortunately, however, subordinates often look at it as a lack of trust and confidence and time, the low expectations that's placed upon them. And then people start to doubt themselves, like, am I competent? Am I capable? But you set them up to fail. You set them up to fail. And that's just not it. That's just not it. See, before the set up to fail syndrome begins, the boss and the subordinates are typically engaged in a positive or at least a neutral type of relationship, right? Now, the triggering events that's to come in the setup to fail syndrome is often minor, right? The subordinate may miss a deadline, might lose a client, or submit the wrong report. In other cases, the syndrome is then catapulted by the boss, who distances him or herself from the subordinate for their own personal or social reasons, right? Then, reacting to the triggering events, the boss increases their supervision on the subordinate. Now they turn it into almost micromanaging, if not micromanaging, when there never was the way that they did things, giving more specific instruction, right? You know, causing interference, definitely. Then the subordinates then responds by beginning to suspect a lack of confidence, like, you don't think I can do this job, you know? And you may see a little bit of distance, and you know that boss may have, hey, you want to grab a bite to eat, you want to go to lunch, you want to go to happy after work, whatever, and then all of a sudden you're not included. They pull back, right? They may also fight to change your image, especially if you're reaching too high or running too fast and you're being too effective. Well, let's slow you down. They won't say let's slow you down, but they'll do things to encourage you to slow yourself down, as if you're not capable, or you shouldn't move at the beat of your own drum, if that makes any sense. Then the boss interprets this as overreaching, right? Signs that the subordinate has poor judgment, weak capabilities, incompetent, right? Then they start to limit the subordinate's discretion, withhold social contact, and shows an increase of lack of confidence in what is taking place in the office. And that leaves the employee, the subordinate, feeling underappreciated, right? They tend to withdraw from being around the boss in functions, anything that connects them directly. In general, they start to automatically just withdraw themselves, even when they're not even invited into a certain situation. And then the boss feels like they're increasingly frustrated and is now convinced that the subordinate cannot perform without intense oversight. Like, what? They start to make them known by the way they talk to them, the deeds, the acts, undermining the subordinates, right? Overall, and then when the setup to fail syndrome is in full effect, the boss pressure and control overcomes the subordinate during interactions, right? Otherwise, they avoid contact and give the subordinate the routine assignments only, right? And then, of course, what is that employee going to do? They're going to end up shutting down, pulling away. I mean, it's crazy when you call it a setup to fail syndrome, but you got people where they got fall guys. I always say people get mad at Donald Trump. He did this. Da, 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 da. Okay. But you got to remember, he may have been the president. He still had to answer to a cabinet. He made no moves without getting approval from a higher source. And people fail to realize that. You can be mad at him because he's the face. He's the fall guy. You looking at somebody who's incompetent. Think about this. You're looking at somebody who you work with or you know of that's incompetent, that's in a leadership role, and they're making acidine moves. And you're looking like, what? But that organization may be trying to cover up something, hide something. And what they will end up doing is looking for a fall guy or two. It ain't gonna just be one. Let's be clear, it's a number of them. And you strategically are gonna put them in certain places, because if you're doing some undermining things, some things that's not right, you're gonna put somebody that people are like, how did they even get in that role? They can't even. So when this shit hits the fan, they'll say, well, he didn't have no clue. I mean, he didn't have, or she didn't have no clue. I mean, she didn't have the blame game, right? The blame game. And before you know it, they're looking at the people, the subordinates, the people that's under this leader that is not a good leader, as like, what is going on? There's the separation, isolation. There's a whole process. Withdrawing. There's all these things. Right? Now, we said, or I should say, I said and mentioned a little earlier, the setup to fail syndrome usually starts with the boss doing certain things or the leader doing certain things in this business or organization, and it creeps up almost out of nowhere, and the plan goes sour real quick, real fast. Now, I will say this: it will leave the subordinate, the employee, to feel less motivated, less energetic, less likely to go beyond the call of duty. There might have been a time when that person or those people would have said, I'm going to go over and beyond. You getting just enough. They're going to do just the minimum. What's required. Now, depending on the person's demeanor and character, they may become passive, right? Less aggressive, right? Not offer any problem-solving problems. Like, okay, we know the problem. What's the solution? They ain't got nothing for you. More prone to hoard information. They don't want to share what they know. Right? It's crazy. It's really crazy. But it happens every day. Every day. Someplace, at some job, at some organization, this is happening to people. And it's putting them in a zone where they feel like, I don't even want to do this no more. Literally wanting to quit. If you sense that you are being treated wrong at work, or you may be that fall girl or that fall guy, I want you to remember that you are resilient. You got that job initially because of your qualifications. Now, if you've been promoted or demoted or whatever that might look like for you, look at why. Did you qualify to be promoted? What did you do to be demoted? If you know it's off, now we all want to be promoted. Will you honestly be able to look in the mirror and say, you know what, I don't have a clue what I'm doing, or I don't know why they promoted me, I haven't done anything. You need to think about that. Why would they promote you when you don't have a clue of what you're doing, and or you don't even have anybody to teach you to do what they want you to do that they say you'll be so great at? How do they know you'll be so great at it? Look at what was going on before you got in there. Was it already failing? Was people already alluding that something ain't right with that team or that unit or that department or that position or that group? Look at all of that. And then you'll find your answer. Don't be no fall guy for nobody at any time. Whether it's on the job, in a relationship, in your family, in your friend circle. Don't be the fall guy. Don't be fall girl. Be you. Authentically you. As they say, get somebody else to do it. I ain't the one. That's what you got to tell them. Respectfully. Well, that's all I got for you on this Thankful Thursday. I know that somebody needed to hear that as a reminder. This will sound familiar to some people. They'll say, well, I'll be damned. Yeah, I'll be damned. It's your girl, TT from the D, and I'll see you soon.